Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. Find everything about me. Scan the QR code, go to roycoughlan.com. If you're looking for virtual assistance, go to va.world. My guest is a Toronto-based astrologer, spiritual guide, and international instructor with the Modern Mystery School. With a lifelong passion for astrology, she combines ancient wisdom with modern insights to help leaders and professionals in healthcare and alternative health, legal and STEM-based professions align with their highest potential. With 20 years of experience under her belt, she joyfully serves those looking to supplement their career with spiritual wisdom. She's in a hotter part of the world now in the US on this call. Please welcome Alexandra Cheo. Did I do it justice? Cheo. Yeah, because we were talking
about the other meaning.
It imprinted in my mind. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. It's all good. Thank you so much for having me today, Roy. It's really wonderful to be talking to you this morning.
Yeah, no. So I suppose Modern Mystery School. I just want to, like, that sounds interesting to me. What's that all about?
Oh my goodness. Well, it is actually a really amazing institution that works with the teachings that come from the times of King Solomon. And it is a school of personal empowerment and truly about embodying your divine potential and living your purpose here on earth. And so how I kind of like to describe it for people is it's a little bit of a modern day Hogwarts meets self-development.
Is it something that is done online, or is there a physical location as well?
So there are physical locations. So in the Western world, the main branch of it is actually located in Toronto. And so I have been working with the administrative staff there, and actually was part of the administrative staff myself for many years before I branched out into my personal practice. And then there are also locations all across the US, as well as in the UK and South Africa and Brazil.
Wow.
And so there are classes, and actually the way our lineage functions is that most of the work that we do is in person. So it is an orally based tradition. And so when you come and attend classes, somebody has taken the time to prepare the space to ensure that there's good energy in the space, so that you have a space to enter where everything is holy and sanctified, things in the highest space. It's kind of interesting because if you think of it, the online world, Roy, how many times, do people just kind of show up pajamas and not necessarily prepared to give it their in the same way that they would if they showed up in person, right? And so considering that it's a school of empowerment and really stepping into your higher potential, online isn't entirely conducive to most of the work that we do.
And I assume because the way that the teachings, a lot of it would be through stories, so people would remember the stories as opposed to kind of memory.
Story, mythology, archetypes, that is a huge part of the work that we do. And it's not just that it's a part of the work that we do, it's also very relevant to people. How much pain and suffering do people go through because they don't really know themselves. And because they don't know themselves, they can't necessarily make the right decisions for themselves, or they vacillate, and they're trying to choose between different parts of their nature. And so coming to that understanding of who you are, the archetypes that you embody and that reside within you is also really important. And all of these mythologies and these archetypes, they were used as a form of transmission of sacred knowledge. And I especially say this of the Greek mythologies. They used a lot of the art of exaggeration to try and teach you about human nature. so that you could understand yourself, but also the people around you.
And then I assume you've got various ages doing this. It's not something that people get to 18 and kind of to kind of build something. It's whenever someone becomes curious of this. So it is vast at different age difference that you're teaching people.
So different ages, different parts of the world, like I mentioned, we're international. I mean, so right now I'm here helping host a class in Nashville. However, we have students in, I believe, all across the world, different ages, and it's really amazing because a couple times a year we gather for conferences at our headquarters in Toronto. And what's really amazing about it, Roy, is that you get to meet people all over the world. So we have people who travel in from Australia, New Zealand, uh, um, some from Poland, some from Romania, Czech Republic, Prague, definitely the US, Brazil. And it's really amazing to be able to meet people who are stepping up on self-development, but also of service to the world. And so I'm travel, and then I get to meet students from all these different parts of the world, but all come from this place of genuinely wanting to serve and to make the world a better place.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm just curious, if we rewind a bit, where did it all begin
Yeah.
for you? How did you get into all of this?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would say that is there. And my grandfather was an amateur astrologer. And growing up, my grandparents lived in a kind of marshy, swampy area. So playing outside wasn't, well, really encouraged. I mean, sometimes you'd catch frogs and snakes and that kind of thing. But what I would do is I would go and I would read his book. And it was a wonderful thing. I mean, first of all, it gave me a really high reading level when I was a kid. What I would do is I would go and steal my grandfather's astrology books. And so I would the dictionary on the other side for the words that I didn't understand. And I began the mythologies and archetypes, particularly of the Greek gods, related to astrology. And that really cultivated a resonance within me. I really felt that there was something more to astrology, and I was seeking that answer to who am I? So I'm going to fast forward a couple years here because that study of astrology lasted childhood into my teenage years. And one of the doctors, who is actually now one of our lineage holders in the Modern Mystery School, I received this session called the Life Activation. And that had kind of fallen to the wayside when I was a child started to come back. For example, Roy, I used to have what would be called prophetic dreams. I would dream about something, and then it would happen a couple days later. And that was something that had gone away. And then it started coming back. And I was like, oh, okay, well, there's something to this. I'll admit I was a little skeptical when my boxing coach suggested that I receive this session, but I was like, okay, you know what, I'll give it a try. If I believe in astrology, this can't be all that far off the mark, right? And then after that session, he was hosting a class called Empower Thyself. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give this a try. And as I sat in that class, I had a lot of questions about astrology that couldn't be answered for several years. Now, to be fair, I was limited as a child and teenager to the books I could find in the library and the early GeoCities pages of the internet. And some people listening might not even remember those or know what those are. Roy, you probably remember those GeoCities pages.
Well, I remember the modem, you had to, like 56K upload. It was very slow. Yeah.
Yes, and the dial-up noise that the internet made. So I was limited. But as I sat in this class, Empower Thyself, many questions that I had started to be answered. And I think perhaps the hugest question that I had about astrology was, well, what if I don't want to be this way? Being a Gemini, one of the things that they love to say about us is that we're two-faced. And I didn't really like nor resonate with that. And so I really did have that question of, well, what if I don't want to be this way? And as I sat in that class, there were tools that were handed down, and teachings and understandings that were transmitted that helped me to understand that we all have good qualities about us that are part of our purpose, but then we also have, the shadows that reside within the subconscious that need to be. And so as I sat in that class and I received those teachings, I started to gain that understanding of what to do if there is a way that I don't want to be. If I don't want to be I don't want to be, a two-faced Gemini, so to speak. That for me. And I ended up moving forward to become a life activation practitioner myself, and eventually through the years an international instructor.
Very good. So, I mean, you mentioned your grandfather's book, and I'm just curious because unfortunately so many things have been doctored. And apparently, from lots of the stuff that I've seen, there was 13 months because it goes in line with the 28-day cycle and everything. Have you seen that in your studies, and how has it been modified?
Well, here's the beauty of astrology, Roy. There are cycles and cycles and cycles. And so what you're referring to is the lunar. And so for a long time, most parts of the world actually functioned off of a lunar. And the lunar cycle is half days. And the lunar cycle is actually really important for us, especially for the women out there, because it's very much tied not only to our hormonal function, but also to states, activity, and rest. So when you start working with the lunar and with the phases of the moon, which is actually a really powerful practice, opportunity to start, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Mediating your energy levels, I guess is what I would say. So especially in our modern times, we have this notion of go, 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 go. Perform at peak level all the time, all output, and have it done by yesterday. But if we go back in time to how humans worked with the lunar calendar, there were periods of activity followed by periods of rest, because that is part of the natural cycle of the moon. And so if you were to look at it as an overall, you have the waxing of the moon, which is the moon growing in light and advancing towards the full moon. And of course, the full moon is the time of peak activity. And then you have the waning of the moon, which is your time for rest, reflection, integration, learning lessons, so that when the new moon comes and the light of the moon starts waxing again, you can do things not only from a place of renewal, right? Because you'll have, filled your own cup, but also so that you can do them smarter. Because in integrating the lessons that you have taken in and what you have learned, you can make better choices the next cycle around. And this is one of the beauties of cycles, with the rhythm and with the patterns that are instituted into them. We always have the opportunity not only for improvement, but also for measured improvement, to really see the fruits of what we do and to say, yes, I actually did better in a tangible, measurable way.
And you mentioned, the star sign, Gemini, I believe. Like when people are born, the actual date and the time, how relevant is it, and what can you tell from that?
Oh my goodness, so much, Roy. So much. So your date, time, and location of birth um, absolutely create a map. So you can think of your personal astrology as a recipe. And for those of you who believe in purpose, I know some of you are searching, absolutely know it. But if you think of your purpose as a recipe, well, before you were born, there was a part of you, we could say the soul or the spirit, that needed to put that recipe together. So, Roy, tell me, what is your favorite dessert?
I suppose banafi pie.
Oh, okay. All right. So, given that it's a pie, there's to be certain things that we need, right? Obviously, you're going to need a crust. Now, I don't know what banafi pie. I'm curious about this.
It's kind of like banana and caramel and cream. I can't get it in Poland, but I remember it from Ireland. Yeah, it's very nice.
Oh, that sounds
Hmm.
wonderful. Okay. I think everyone listening is probably salivating at this point. So, say that as you came into this world, you told the universe, I am coming to make banafi pie. And of course, there are ingredients that you need in order to create that banafi pie. So, I mean, I don't know these for banafi pie out there, but I'm sure that there's more than one. And so in your banafi pie, of course, one of the things that you're going to need is bananas, right? That's absolutely part of it. And so you could think of the bananas, for example, as communication abilities, right? And then of course you mentioned caramel is part of it too. Well, the caramel is your relationship skills. And then you have the crust in the pie, right? And all the ingredients that go in the crust in the pie. And so you could think of those things as organizational abilities that you brought in with you in order to manifest this purpose of creating banafi pie. So every one of us has a purpose, and purpose is manifold. It's not just a singular thing, but there are qualities that we bring in order to manifest that. And based on your astrological chart, using your date of time, your date of birth, time of birth, and location, you can actually look at what those ingredients are, the qualities of the ingredients, and how accessible they are in order for you to create the things that you want in life. They are reflective of your own nature.
So there was a thing that I saw, and it's an astrology chart in your business analyzed, and you've top reasons. But I just find like very interesting how you can kind of incorporate this into the business realm.
Absolutely. So it's kind of interesting, Roy, because most people think of the personal applications of astrology. And so if you go on the internet, the very first thing you're going to see probably are like the dating applications of astrology or astrology almost is like a personality typology. However, if we go back in time, hundreds and even thousands of years ago, astrology was actually used to guide royalty, kings and queens, statesmen, that kind of thing. And it was used in such a way, because if you think of the state almost like a business, basically, it was used to help guide leaders so that they could serve the people that they bore responsibility to. And so ancient astrologers would guide leaders on everything from, for example, weather patterns. And weather astrology is not necessarily my piece of the puzzle. However, those weather patterns absolutely signaled things like how much food do we need to store for the winter? We're lucky. We have fridges. We have globalization. There's always plenty of food available. But in those times, if inclement weather was coming in, you needed to know how much you needed to store in order to make it through the winter, or how much you needed to stock up because potentially you might be looking at something like drought or that kind of thing. And then also they advised on things like trade, as well as strategic allies. When do you go to war? When do you not go to war? And all of these things you could absolutely apply to a business setting as well. And so I mentioned war as an example. Well, in business, that's competition, right? Strategic allies. Well, those are collaborations, potential business partners. Inclement weather. Well, that can be anything from suppliers, if you have a tangible product, to more global scenarios. What are the markets that you're tapping into? What's their financial forecast like? Are they going through drought, i.e. dry times? And are you going to need to be cognizant of that? Or, is it good weather and everything's flowing well?
And
So when you look at the chart of the business, there is a lot that you can tell not only about its nature, but also that you can forecast in order to serve it.
And for the entrepreneur then, do you see any patterns when you're kind of analyzing the entrepreneur or what they should be watching out for?
So one of the things that I notice in general for charts for entrepreneurs is one, they generally tend to have a lot of fire in their chart. And so that fire creates passion, drive, and personal initiative, actually. So this is one of the things that I notice. But also, entrepreneurs tend to have aspects to Jupiter in their chart. And I mean positive aspects. And Jupiter is the planet of fortune and abundance, but also of exploration. So there, one of the archetypes of Jupiter is the explorer or the adventurer. And so that philosophical spirit of exploration and adventuring is something that can happen regardless of your zodiac sign. Because as long as you have positive aspects to Jupiter in your chart, whether he is one of your planetary rulers, or if he's sitting on the ascendant, or if you have other planets in positive aspect to Jupiter, it tends to emphasize that desire to create your own fortune, rather than to simply be on the receiving end of it.
So you mentioned STEM-based profession. Are you talking about stem cells, or is that something, an abbreviation for something when you had that in your profile?
Oh, so that's actually more of the scientific professions. So like biology, chemistry, especially engineering, actually. I do work with quite a few engineers.
Okay. And I suppose the spiritual side of things then as well, because I think everyone is in confusion at the moment and everyone is grasping for something and then they're jumping from one thing to the other. But what I'm finding is a lot of people are kind of saying they're more spiritual because they're not attaching to a certain religion. And when people are kind of lost, what kind of, is there advice that you could give how they can find themselves and how they can get to kind of investigate this and see if they got a calling and to understand life a bit better?
Well, I'm gonna quote Aristotle here. Knowing yourself is the beginning and end of all wisdom. So most people, often when they start searching for some form of philosophy or spirituality in the world, they often begin looking to external systems that are going to kind of give them certainties, I guess you could say. As human beings, we always need to know where we came from and where we're going. And when we have that, it gives us a certain measure of stability. And so many religions kind of offer us that. They have an origin story, and then we know, where are we likely to go when we pass on, right? And so in having that origin and where are we heading, it creates a certain stability. And while those things are important, the greatest stability is the stability that truly comes from knowing yourself, exploring that. But also, any ancient system that gives you that self as reference, that truly is about uncovering who you are inside, what the power is that lies within you, and helping you to discern the difference between the good qualities of what I will call light inside of you, the qualities of spirit that bring goodness to your life, versus those lower parts of you. You could kind of liken it to having the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, right? And so there's always, that part of you that is tempting to behaviors that maybe are petty or are problematic, and that can be anything from addictions to relationship issues that they cause, right? And when you begin that work of knowing yourself and refining your relationship with yourself, that is priceless. That is priceless. And astrology is actually one of those tools that you can accomplish that by. And then also in the Modern Mystery School, there's a series of activations and classes that you can take that are all in pursuit of know thyself.
And with the school, then, is the aim to help people to kind of find themselves, but also find the calling, see what there can resonate, that they can create a kind of profession in this? Or is it just that they understand life a bit better? What's the kind of main purpose of it?
All of the above. So what I would tell you, Roy, is that our ultimate goal is world peace. That's really what we want. But it starts within you. And then there comes a point where the healing work that you've done on yourself creates a desire to share it with other people. And so this is why we have students and practitioners in 60 different parts, 60 different countries, because many of them have reached that place where they've done quite a bit of healing work and they have tangible results in their lives. They have better relationships. They definitely aren't suffering to the same degree that they were before. Life isn't pushing them around. They're not living with constant anxiety. And from that place of personal fulfillment, there comes a sense of gratitude. And from that gratitude is often when others embark to become life activation practitioners or guides such as myself, so that you can share and give gratitude for what you received by passing it on.
I find
paying it forward.
No, absolutely. I find that with a lot of the guests on my other shows, like say the awakening, which is it's sometimes there's people with addictions and stuff like that, or meditation, just something through trauma, whatever, but they've learned to overcome it. And their mission then is helping others. And some of them have developed fantastic systems. And I think it's a great way because, one, they can resonate with the person that's in pain that they're helping, and they understand where they're coming from. And I think it's different, but at the same time with this as well, it's they understand like where people are just by going through the journey and learning as well.
So needed in the world, Roy. You can't it's hard to help someone if you haven't been through something yourself. Not that it's not possible, but for sure you can't take people where you haven't been yourself. So if you haven't found joy in life, you can't lead somebody there. You know, as one of my teachers, Sovereign Ipsis Miss Dave says, you can't share what you don't have, right? But you can share what you do have. So people who have misery share misery. People who have joy share joy. And there are many people who have been in that place of misery and suffering, and they're able to turn it around. What they would consider to be their greatest curse, so to speak, ends up becoming an incredible source of strength and inspires incredible benevolence. And that really is what we need in this world. We need benevolence. We need empowered benevolence. We don't want to just be doormats but we do want to come from that place of true service.
With the martial arts then, what's your whole kind of career, different things? Because I've done boxing, I've done kickboxing, I've done Kung Fu for something like 8 years or something like that. I was always into something. I'd just like to know your martial arts journey.
Well, that's a lot of fun there. So I actually started when I was a child. My parents put me into karate. I think mostly so I would stop beating up my younger brother. So I think they thought if they gave me a more kind of constructive outlet. But in my teenage years, I ended up training in boxing and Muay Thai, and I have an instructorship in Savate Boxe Français, and so I've been training consistently for 30 something years now. And martial arts, it's kind of interesting because most people think of it as violence, and or if they try and look at it in an alternative way, children often put parents often put their children in martial arts for discipline. And that's part of it. But given that you have experience, Roy, I think you'll kind of resonate with this. Martial arts also teaches you about yourself. And it teaches you how to undergo purposeful hardship. Because when you were training, because I know for sure, Roy, I've had my moments where it's like, oh man, this really sucks. You're gasping for breath. You're in the ring. Someone's coming at you. And it's like, if your mind could just, step out a back door and leave you alone, it absolutely would. Right? Yeah, you've had those moments too. I can see from your smile there. So, where it's like, other parts of you would just kind of abandon. You don't get to do that because, especially in this case, there's probably real consequences, like a fist to the nose. And you really have to pull all the parts of yourself together in order to accomplish the goal. And sometimes the goal is just don't get hit. Sometimes the goal is hit back, right? To hold your own boundaries. And in those moments, especially when you're being challenged, and I personally think that sparring in martial arts is one of the most grounded ways to see who you are and who you are under pressure, actually. And it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could probably do without getting hit in the nose, but you just got to keep your hands up.
I think as well, it's when you do the martial arts that you're able to kind of, if you come into any scenario, because of your confidence, it doesn't escalate. And even with my son, like my youngest son, he's 12 now, but since a young age, I taught him how to box, I taught him how to hit, and people were thinking, oh, this is wrong. And everything. He has never bullied anyone, but he has saved a few people that were being bullied, and he sticks up for what's right. And he now is so confident because he realizes, recently, I don't know if you see the things where you press the button and the boxing bag comes down, and he got 742 or something. He done better than my brother. And it's like that is a hard punch for a young child. But I think it gives you so much confidence as well, knowing that, I'm not going to accept, and I think people can see it. So if there is bullies, they know just by the way that you present yourself. They don't go after you. They go after the guy that keeps his head down, is afraid and timid, and unfortunately they bully them. But what I love about my son is when he sees someone being bullied, he doesn't just walk past. He stops it. And, I think the more people that do that, the better it'll be. And you're talking earlier about, we want world peace and everything. And the other thing is that instead of turning our back and saying it's not my problem, even with adults, that we step in when we should and just kind of realize, hey, if you see somebody, I even said this, sometimes you'd be in a supermarket and you see, say, a mother or father hit a young child, that would hurt an adult. And usually we just we walk on as if that's not my problem. But we shouldn't, because it's not right. And it keep happening unless we step in. And I think by being, confident of your own skills, you're not worried that the person turns on you. I think they'll know just by your presence that they'll start listening, and hopefully, plus the way that you present yourself as well. You're not doing it in an aggressive way. You can keep calm when you have abilities.
I love that you mentioned that, Roy, because, if I go back to archetypes and deities, how many warrior gods and goddesses are there in all the world's mythologies? There's a lot. And they symbolize the fact that we need to be able to say no to things and to enforce them. I really think that in many ways, martial arts makes you better at boundaries. Maybe not necessarily a master, but certainly better at it. And to be able to not only say no to something, but to kind of reinforce the no. The hardest part about boundaries, it's not the first time they get crossed. It's the 17th time, the 89th time, the 547th time. We need to be able to continually reinforce our boundaries, and these warrior archetypes are a necessary part of us. Sometimes benevolence, yes, is giving a meal to somebody, saying a kind word. And sometimes benevolence is protecting the innocent and protecting those who truly need help, who don't have the power in their own circumstances at that moment. And this is where you need that warrior of light.
I remember when I think I was 13, I used to do newspapers, and there was a lot of, it was never one person would bully it. It could be 8 or 9 people. And I was being bullied at one stage as I was having the paper. I think they took the papers off me and set them alight. And a guy that came up to me was like a second dan or something like that in the Kunf Fu, hunted him away and told me, hey, you should join our club, and explained where it was. And that's how I joined Kung Fu then, just from him. And then after that, all the bullying and everything kind of stopped. And so he did that for me.
Yeah, and I love that, because again, this illustrates, sharing what you have and in positive and negative ways, right? So those kids who are bullying you, what did they have? They had misery. So what did they do? They shared misery. Mm. And luckily, somebody else who had something different reached out a helping hand and shared that with you too. Yeah. And we just need a whole lot of sharing a lot more good things in this world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with your website then, because there's different things here, you might let the listeners know what kind of things that you're offering that they could expect from you.
Oh, yes, of course. So my website is astrologerroyale.com. And on it, you will find a couple of different programs that cater to working with you via the tools of astrology. And so the two primary tools that I work with are with natal chart coaching, as well as forecast coaching, which is basically looking at your own personal, I guess you could call it weather forecast through time so that you can make the most of events that are happening in your life. And also on my website, you will find a free ebook called Star Powered Resilience. And it is the Zodiac inspired guide about stress impact as well mitigate that stress. And I always like to give the extra hint that if you happen to know where Mercury and Mars are in your chart, those provide added layers of insight so that you can become not only more stronger, effective, and resilient in your life, but also that you can be present and share your gifts with the world from a place of empowerment and not personal detriment.
Excellent. Listen, thoroughly enjoyed the call. You mentioned the website, you might mention again, and if there's any other places where you want people to follow you.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, that is website is astrologerroyale.com. I would also encourage anyone who's listening, since we were talking about the Modern Mystery School quite a bit, to visit their website as well, Modern Mystery School, INT.com. And wherever you are in the world, I can almost guarantee that there's probably a practitioner close by who would be absolutely happy to share tools and higher understanding with you too.
Excellent. I'll make sure I'll put the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Alexandra.
Oh, thank you so much, Roy.
Well, so that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find other episodes on speakingpodcast.com. Find everything about me. Scan the QR code or go to roycoughlan.com. And if you're looking for virtual assistants, go to va.world. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and make sure you check out Alexandra's site. Until next week, take care.